they're landing.
It's okay. Yeah, 84, 86, general range.
Great.
Tap, 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 tap. Almost. A little bit. Tap, tap. Right there. Good. So we get a yip, right?
Yeah.
Now, ideally I don't want the yip, right? But even though she yipped, what happened?
Yeah, she crushed it.
No, she didn't.
Oh, okay.
She yipped and she kept looking.
I see.
Yeah, and then you tapped again, and then she turned around, and then there was one more. Now she's facing the direction you're facing, right? So the yip doesn't always mean physical discomfort. It can be emotional discomfort, or it can be she's frustrated because she doesn't want to disengage from whatever has her attention. So like right now, I think I saw a squirrel going over there, but there's something over there that she was staring at, and you have to keep going up. And what I was looking for is typically on that first hit, the dog will oh, boom, right? So I have that 3-tap rule. If not by the first tap, then by the third tap, if I don't see a change, I bump it. But here, I was going by the first tap.
Yeah.
Okay? Because once I hit that number, the dog goes, what? Sorry, what am I supposed to do? Then I go, now I got your attention. Okay, so in the beginning, we do the 3-tap rule, one to condition yourself, to give you a structure, to know when I need to increase it. But at this point, 9-10 weeks into training or whatever, she has a very good concept. Now it's just a matter of does Dinah respect the command enough to perform it immediately? And we just get that through power. Okay, so we were at typically 30 whatever, and now we're at 90 something.
84.
84. And she was completely unfazed every time, right? So it kind of shows you, again, size doesn't matter. It's all about what's going on in here and just how physically sensitive or tough is the dog. Okay.
She I have no idea if there's any relation here at all, but it was kind of a really startling display from her yesterday. It was a day where we went on a walk in the morning, and then Corey and I were both in and out all day, and she did not get the attention or exercise that she very normally gets. And so we were all together then last night, and she, for the first time ever, she got her paws up on the counter and grabbed a piece of pizza, and then walked into the living room where we were, and was chewing on it, and because I couldn't tell what it was right away, like she brought it in on purpose. And I went to get it out of her jaw, and like normally she's very used to me going after, like squeezing the jaw and popping something out, and she latched onto me and drew a little bit of blood. And it was like, I just hadn't seen her be like that ever. Ever. Sure. And it was sort of like, I was having this thought of like, okay, this was a day when she didn't get her beads out, like we knew it. But I was also like, wait a minute, since when? Like, since when are we like being this like aggressive towards mom? Since when are we acting out this much, kind of a thing? So I was kind of like, I don't know if there's any relation at all to her being a little lax.
No, that's just a higher value object.
Okay.
So that's resource guarding? Where did she get you?
Right on she got me right on the joint.
Okay. And this was last night?
Yeah.
Okay. So like she got you enough to like nick and then draw some blood, but not enough to puncture it.
It was a little tiny puncture on the top. The back was not as bad. I mean, it's fine today. I think what got me was that like she didn't just bite me; she held. And I was just like, what the hell was that? So I'm like, I was like yelling at Corey. I'm like, oh my god, she has me. Like, what do I do with this dog?
Yeah. So that's resource guarding. Okay. So technically, like any other time that you've done this, I'm assuming like with toys.
Yeah, it's usually like when she was little, or like a chunk of mulch, like wood that she should.
So like for me that makes sense in the sense of like you've been doing that since she was a puppy. But this is the first time it was a piece of pizza. The pizza's good. And she'd shown interest in Corey. We were eating late because just how crazy the day was, and he had like brought some into the table where she was smelling it and was interested, but she has never like gone up and gotten something off the island. So the next thing is like, I get a lot of clients that say, my dog's the sweetest, I've never seen aggression, this is not an aggressive dog. And I hate it when it's referred to that way, because it makes it seem like aggression is a kind of characteristic. Whereas anybody and everybody is capable of becoming aggressive. I look at aggression as a escalated form of anger, if you will, for humans, right? So for dogs, it's the same thing. It's just whether or not we put them in the context where they think they need to trigger. Okay. So in that case, a very high value object she never had before, that she technically hunted and caught herself.
That's true.
and now you're competing for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's primal dogs. Okay, so I don't take that stuff personally.
Yeah.
So what that tells me is she is capable of resource guarding.
Yeah.
And now you have like a definition of what she may resource guard.
Yeah.
So then to address that, what we do is we teach her to release. Okay. One thing would be to teach her that things on the counter are off limits by just making that a default rule of you don't steal things off the counter.
Yeah.
The other thing is if I cue the word drop or out or whatever, she releases whatever she has within her mouth.
Yeah.
And now it's no longer stealing because I told her to release it and she surrendered it. Now it's mine to take.
Yeah.
Okay. So most people go by I've taken 99% of things out of their mouth. I'm like, yeah, but you happen to find that 1% that she's not willing to let you take.
Yeah.
Okay. So the good thing about resource guarding is that it's context based. So like you can plan around it, you can work with it, you can let's say she has another piece of pizza, you can just gamble the next time, like, you know what, you're probably going to resource guard that, so let me devise a different way of removing it or getting it from you. Whereas opposed to like a dog that just bites someone because they walk past them.
Yeah.
That's more difficult.
Yeah.
So did you want to cover or like learn how to go over that stuff? What was your...
I mean, I guess I was curious if there was anything else underlying there that I was missing other than...
No, it's just dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, she had started to learn drop, was never a big fan of it, and we haven't really used the collar for that purpose.
Sure.
And so I know that she knows what the command means. And so I'm assuming it would just be like, if she has her collar on and this occurs, like 3 taps, go up. I mean, give it a command, 3 taps if she doesn't, and just keep going up till she lets it go?
Technically, yes. Okay. What I would do is I would do it in a controlled context. So like, let's say she likes to play fetch.
Yeah.
I would do it with fetch. Because it's something that you would be practicing regularly.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not like I do this once a day when I get my dog something. Is if you need a reliable drop or out, where it's going to apply even when she's got an object like that, it has to be like with the tongue where it's done in tongue. Boom. She shoots you.
Yeah.
You need that kind of drop response.
Yeah.
Because when she finds that piece of pizza, she's most likely not going to have a collar on.
Yeah.
So when you shoot the drop and happens, and she just walks away from it, there's no second guessing of, am I going to be remoted? How high am I going to be remoted? It's just been practiced and rehearsed hundreds, if not thousands of times where it's dropped, okay, there is no like second guessing.
Okay. That
So
makes sense.
if she likes to play tug, if she likes to play fetch, anything where she's actively engaging with you and she has an object in her mouth, I'm playing with her, and then like Corey could be there with the remote. I say drop, and I stop engaging, and he starts tapping 10, 15, 20, or 25, right? Until at maybe 30, she spits it out. Good girl. Okay, and we play some more, and we keep repeating that. Now, when you try to engage the remote collar during play, you're going to get a dip in interest in the activity or in the object. Because now you're putting rules to something that's fun, not something that's funny. Okay, it's fun when she gets to do whatever and run away and like refuse to give it to you. Not so fun when you have control.
It's been her favorite game since she was tiny.
Yes. So that's normal. The moment she disengages and like loses interest, I just put it up, I stop. I try later in the day. She has nothing to do with it, I put it away. Try in the morning. Nothing, the evening. Nothing, the next day. Eventually she's gonna start to kind of come out of her shell and engage again. And then I'm just mindful. So that's why we start low, like stupid low, like 10 low, and gradually work your way up. Because you're trying to get her to release with the tap, but not completely dissuade her permanently on engaging, okay? Once she learns the name of the game of like, oh, I can play tug, and I can pull, I can growl, I just have to drop it when you say drop, and it's instant, and I can re-engage her. Then I go, cool, now we're at the point where we can just kind of utilize and reinforce, ideally always tapping at least once to get her to disengage, because you're trying to cement in her brain, drop tap. So that fast forward 6 months, she's got pizza again, drop, boom.
Yeah.
There's no second guessing whether or not the remote's on.
Yeah.
Okay. And tug or fetch, whatever the game is nice because it's something you would continue to practice. Okay, because it's not teach it, and then when she learns it, expect for it to be always reliable. That's why, like with the other stuff, because we tend to walk our dogs on a daily basis, multiple times a day even. You're regularly rehearsing your sit, your stay, your heel, like all that stuff that is keeping everything in play. But if you teach the behavior, like let's say place, and then you don't touch it for 4 months, don't expect her to place 4 months later and be as good as she was 4 months prior.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of place, we did a perfect place at the vet. It was not this last week; it was the week before because I didn't see you last Sunday.
Yeah.
But we had to go just do a little like eye appointment thing, and they always just have you put her on the scale, and she's always resisted, and we just placed.
Oh, beautiful.
It was amazing. I was like, oh, that was the most like useful thing. Because I hadn't really thought, other than the convenience of having her in her spot for different reasons. We hadn't like had a practice. Like,
yeah, like a practical.
We hadn't put it into practice yet.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah,
so yeah,
great.
So tug is a nice thing that you can practice on a regular basis that would keep that release handy for the time when you do need it. You know, if something should happen.
Yeah.
In the meantime, should that happen again, and whether it be maybe like, I don't know, a sandwich, you know, just assume like, probably not going to be able to take it from her. Get something else so you can trade with her. I never go for the object. I either go for the dog or go for the nose. So if I have something like a piece of chicken, I just bring it to the nose, and then she'll catch the scent, and typically they'll spit out what they have to take within your hand.
Yeah.
And then I can do a swap out. So that's kind of like a workaround. It doesn't like fix the problem, but it allows you to get the object without worrying about her biting you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what I do is you know, if a dog has an object that I need to take for them, I go for the dog and not the object.
Okay.
Everybody goes for the object, and then that's stealing to them. So then you're going to get some confrontation there.
That makes sense.
But if I correct the dog myself, more often than not, they're going to disengage because I'm challenging them, and then they back off, and then I can take the object. But that's a little bit more complicated. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have those two options. And if you go on, I'd have to see on YouTube. I don't know if anybody has a video teaching e-collar out. I know I've been wanting to do it for a bit, but we've not had any dogs that had enough drive to make it very easy to see. Because once they lose the interest, then it's like now we got to do extra work to get them interested again.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
I think so.
Okay. Keep an eye on the resource guarding stuff.
Yeah.
It shouldn't like get worse in the sense of, because what can happen is like first it starts with food, then it's toys, then it's the bed, then it's the couch. It can start to expand, but usually like I can tell by the personality, like the dog's a bully, and then it became more and more prevalent. Where in your case, I don't find her to be a bully.
Yeah.
I think it was just a one-off context of like resource guarding if there's a high value object.
Yeah, for sure.
That she hunted.
It's like, hey,
herself.
you guys left this.
Yes.
I found it.
Okay. Anything else?
I think so.
Okay. So let's go ahead and pop her onto long leash.
Okay.
And what have you been working on with her for this like past week? Because I know with Corey last week we went over. We had to fix her stay because she kept like gluing to him and wouldn't stay in one place.
Is still kind of that way with one person. Like, if that makes sense. If it's two of us, she'll like, if in the yard or something like that, she seems to be okay with like stay for whatever reason.
Sure.
I don't know why, if it's the other person's presence or something. But like, like he tried one the other day, and she was just like, yeah, nonsense. I'm coming with you. Okay. So.
When you guys practice, do you typically practice together?
It varies.
Okay.
I would say more often not.
Okay, because dogs get used to like contact, so if it was always the two of you practicing together, that would make sense. So it is kind of little odd that she'd do that, but let's take a look, okay? So I'll have you do a heel into a stay, and we'll see what she does. No problem, take your time.
I don't know what it is about a super long leash that gets my brain immediately scrambled. Okay. Yep.
And what's her number, by the way?
84.
Let's go ahead and go back down. We'll go down to 45. She might start to be needing a coat pretty soon.
So wasn't here last week. We're still doing like the half circles around.
Yeah, so just go into the heel And then give a stay, and I want to see what she does. And you can take off your short leash and just leave her on that long leash if it makes life easier.
Perfect.
There you go.
It's interesting. She's looking at this. Dinah, heel.
Okay.
Stay. So the fact that her attention is on something else, is this an issue?
No.
Okay.
As long as she holds still. Good. Going to come back to her side here. And you're going to give the heel, but you're going to keep your leash slack like you have it.
Dinah, heel.
Yep, forward.
Heel.
Correction turn. Tap, tap. There you go. Good. Good. Going to slow down to a stop. Good. Stay.
Stay.
And then here, I'll have you do the half circle into a full circle. So like when you tried this by yourself, she was like still wanting to follow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Seems like it, but I should have done more with her this week, I'll be honest. I think she does better with Corey too because I'll just be honest, he's more consistent at working on stuff than I intend to be.
Sure.
So that's part of the issue is I just need more work.
Okay. Going to come back to her side. So we're not seeing what she did last week. Part of that can be because you essentially set her straight when you went to the 80.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're like here, you see how she's facing the same direction you are? I don't care that she's looking in the same direction. I just care that she's facing the same direction because that kind of, where her chest is pointing is kind of where her attention is, right? Okay. Is earlier, she was completely behind you, right? So she wasn't in a state of like, oh, what do you need me to do? Yeah. So once you went to 80 and you're like, hey, like we're working right now, all of a sudden it's like, oh, these things, you know? So sometimes it can be just too much distraction or not important enough for them to think like, I really don't want to make mistakes right now because the consequence sucks, okay? So, since you were at 85 earlier, before we started, I said dip it down, go to 45. When you started the heel, what happened?
She got out.
She got out, and you did one turn. And after that one turn at 45, all of a sudden she was right in line. Yeah. So when you're doing your training or your walks with her, it should feel super simple. It should feel like, man, that was one correction for a 1 hour walk. That's amazing. Yeah. Then it's been like, oh, it's been like 5 days. It's 5 days since I've had to correct her again. You know, you should see a very large gap between each correction, and it's almost always simply the number or the owner is not doing the turns correctly. Like most people go back to pulling back on the dog. Yeah. So like last week when I worked with Corey, he was shortening his leash and tightening it up as opposed to giving the slack and doing the correctional turn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I'd fallen into a few weeks ago, but then this last week I was really just like, I think for me it was really kind of making the time to be sure that we had the time in the walk, that there was no rushes. So
sure.
Part of it is like, no, I know where we're going, we have to be back in half an hour.
Sure.
Like, get back here.
Right.
So it was just me doing it better, but it was so effective.
Yeah. So she's got a good concept. It's just a matter of not falling back into bad habits or old habits, and also the power. Okay. Let's go and do another heel. Yep, forward, tap, tap. There she goes. Good girl. Good pivot. Going to pick up your pace. Yep, good. Tap. Good. Good. Good pivot. And then slow down to a stop.
It is definitely something that I noticed as well. That she is great at staying where she needs to be when I'm going slower, and then she starts to assume we're going to go faster.
Okay.
Like, so then I would just not go faster, and that was another correction that we started working on.
Sure. So like, what your speed is technically doesn't matter. Yeah. If you're going fast, you're going fast. If you're going slow, you're going slow. She should do either.
For sure.
Is if you're going slow and she starts to challenge, again, just a tap at the correct number, boom, she should lock in, and speeding up, slowing down, stopping, turning, all that stuff should be no problem. Okay? And I'm gonna probably stress the number thing a lot today, because that is the one thing that holds people back. Is that they're not bumping the number because the dog has either done so well or is doing so much better than what they were before. And I go, no. I was like, it could be even better. But we just have to be consistent about making sure we're being very strict, because I don't want to have to turn and turn and turn to correct the dog. Once they've learned it, it's like, hey, you do it or you're going to get remoted at 60 if that's the number that's going to make you do it. Okay? So here, when you do like earlier, when you said heel and she didn't move, what happened? Do you remember?
The yelp that she didn't move for?
No, so earlier when you went to a long leash, you said heel and started walking, but she didn't move.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you did?
No, what did I do? Did I go back to her?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then you said, and you like got in her face and you're like, heel, right? I just keep walking and I remote.
Yeah.
And I go, hey, I said it, you better do it. Okay? So I don't give second chances. Is you do it on the first time or the remote's gonna kick in. Okay, so then it makes her very like, I need to do this the moment they say it because I want to avoid that tap as much as possible.
It really is about training us. Like, it's just...
Yep.
It's so funny how much it is exactly that.
Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to have you do a heel and change your pace, walk fast, whatever you want to do. Okay, just remember the moment she gets out of line, you need to do that correctional turn, okay, with the tap. Go ahead. Yep. Good.
I don't know how fair it is to pivot on her that fast, but we're doing it.
Good. Yeah, good. Yeah, keep forward. Tap, tap, tap. Keep forward. Keep forward. There you go. Good. There she goes. Good pivot. Yep, yep, there she goes. But that was faster now. Good, now try coming to a stop here. Okay, now you're gonna try a stay. Okay, now because she stopped a couple times, right? And the first one was like 5 hits, the second one was 3 hits. And she shot to you, okay? So now and what I liked is that she didn't try to like run off or like shut down. She like actively moved to you. That's really good. Go ahead and give a stay. This might be a little challenging for her because since you remoted her to return to you, she might be a little paranoid on that, okay? Good.
I have to laugh at how sad she is. Your life is very hard.
This is all good. Going to come back to her side. And I'm going to have you put her in a down. Right. Wait a moment. Right. Okay. Wait a moment. Slower taps. Tap. Tap. Wait a moment. Tap. There it is. Okay, now you're going to just step away. Very good. And then you'll walk around again. How often do you guys work on the down?
Gosh, we were doing a really good job integrating into walks the week before last, but this week I didn't do it as much.
Okay, because I think last week when Koyo was doing it, like he was still needing to tug her down.
Yeah.
So I would do each of you guys a 2 to 3 minute session on just the downs and releases to get her to down faster, because it should be down, boom.
Yeah.
Okay, or at least a little bit more smoother. I don't mind the stepping on the leash part because it just helps in terms of making it a little bit, limiting her range of motion. But definitely I can see where she doesn't have a very good concept quite yet. Okay. So that does need more work.
Okay.
But the stay looks good. The heel looks good. Correcting the heel from, confusion looked good. I can tell the difference because it's how long does it take for the dog to correct the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So if they correct it relatively quickly, then I know they have a good concept. But if it takes them a bit or a lot more work on the handler's part to help lead them into the position, that tells me they don't have a good concept. Okay?
That makes sense. We did really good with puppy push-ups, again, week before last. And then, I saw Corey kind of did it in a fun moment, but I think he had a treat in his hand and she was like, oh yeah, I know.
Oh sure, yeah, that's completely different.
But out of context of the world and stimuli. And
yes, yeah, for sure. Okay, let's go ahead and pop her in the heel.
Okay. Heel.
Good. Yeah, that's a good turn. Yep, good. Good turn. Yep, keep going. There she goes. Good. Keep going. Yep, there you go. Good.
Is she doing that because she wants to be done?
The yipping?
Yeah, just the sitting, the stuffing.
Oh, yeah, she's just getting, she's just shutting down a little bit. It's okay. Good, go and slow down, no stop when you're ready. Now, you saw right there.
Yeah.
When you stopped and you took that one little step forward, she leaped, bunny hopped over to you, right?
Yeah.
Now she's really paranoid about where is that leg, okay? So go ahead and cue the down.
Down.
Right, wait a moment. Slow taps. A little bit of leash pressure with your foot, or your hand. There you go. There we go, good. And then step away. Good, go ahead and walk around. Good. And go in and release her.
What's that?
Go in and release. Break. Free. Good. What we're going to do is we're going to go into a recall here. See if I can distract her. Is your nervousness here? Good. And I'll have you try those side steps. Right. Good. Good. Try 2 steps back. Right. Now, stay. Very good. and then you'll return back to her side. And what we're going to do is we're going to cue her into a sit. We may need to grab the leash a little higher just in case. Yep. Good. And you'll drop leash and step away again. Good. Go ahead and move around. Let's see if she'll hold that position. Good. Going to pop her in the heel. Good. Good, go and turn towards me. And slow to a stop. Good. So now, like when you work with Dinah, right? Or when you, like, the past couple of weeks, in terms of like mistakes and stuff, or like just her kind of pressing boundaries, would you say it's more often than not she does, or more often than not that she doesn't, like with the foraging when you're walking and things like that?
I would say that she does it. She like makes an attempt on every walk.
Okay.
But then she'll correct pretty quickly.
Okay.
Like,
so
she doesn't really do it again. Like, we just correct it. You know, the other day was kind of weird because we had multiple things that kind of freaked her out.
Sure.
But other than that, it's usually like, it's a one and done, but it's every time.
Gotcha. So what I would do is find that number. Like right now we're at 45. And she's, the only real mistake that she's made is the shutting down during the heel. But everything else, she's been like staying, holding the position. We did the down into the sit, which I was expecting her to prematurely down. She held that, no problem. All that stuff's been going really well. And even after that first initial turn and tap for the forging, she's been spot on, okay? So what I would do is either one, start that walk on 45, okay? And try to be more aware of her attention. So like, let's say you come out and you stop at the sidewalk and Dinah's just on the environment. Instead of saying heel and walking, do what we did here, right? 45, tap, 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 50, 55, 60, 65, until eventually it's like, oh, here I am. Yeah. Now I got your attention, right? Then I'd go down to 45, then start to walk. And then see how she does. Yeah. And if you notice, like, wow, like didn't have to turn, it's because from the get-go, you essentially forced compliance and like knocked out the environment from her head from the get-go. Yeah. The exception would be firework, loud sound, because that's a totally different context. But in the context of like we're just walking into the quiet or whatever normal environment, it should be completely fine. Okay, so like the obedience is supposed to be functional from the get-go. So for me, I don't walk out and say heel and turn 5 times before my dogs walk perfectly. We just walked. I say heel and they're boom, they're right there.
Yeah, and for her, it tends to be like I said, kind of in the middle of the walk. Like she starts out sort of beautifully, and then it's kind of once, even if it's something fairly low on the anxiety scale, kind of occurs. Like the other day, it was the UPS truck, and then there were men throwing branches into a bin, terrifying, and then it was really like losing her mind a little bit, and we had to do it a couple of times.
Sure.
But, yeah. So
and if possible, I would keep her within that context, like you said, like the guys throwing the tree branches in the bin, walking by a few times. Getting her used to like it's just guys walking throwing trees in the bin, right? And you can't make her get 100% completely over it, but you're getting her more used to it, or if anything, you're just teaching yourself what number is she going to need in order to be on her best in this kind of context, right? And it could be 45, it could be 65, it could be 85. You know, so the next time you come across like, oh, I see guys throwing garbage in a bin or whatever, I'm already at 85, as if that was the number I was at prior. So I can get it done even more quickly. Yeah. So like my Chihuahua, he hates CTA buses because when they come to a stop and they do that big like sound. Yep. Yeah. So whenever a bus or a semi comes by, in the beginning, because they're from Texas, small town Texas, so we didn't have those things. In the beginning when I first moved here, he would practically run off the leash if I would let him. Now, like, he kind of, like, he'll scatter for a second, but then he comes right back very quickly, because throughout the years I've remoted him and corrected him, so he's learned to like how to recover very quickly. So it's the same thing here. By repeating and forcing those kind of situations, you can't get rid of the initial response because it's just part of the brain, but she will recover right away, and it'll be less work on your part in terms of having to get her back under control, because her brain's not is already stopping itself. Because every time she freaks out or like pulls aside because something loud happens, it's becoming a habit. So when the response happens and then the remote happens, the brain starts to build that sequence, and then she goes, oh, I gave into it, but I know if I keep going into it, it's going to happen, so I'm going to stop and go right back. Totally. Okay, so then you'll see yourself regulate. It won't be perfect, but it'll be much better than...
Yeah. And I've seen her work on that a little bit. Like, she did a little bit with the guys in the branches, where I could see her, like, she would take, like, one panic step and then bring herself back. Like,
exactly.
I could see her kind of go, and it just was, like, her working through it, which was nice to see. The other thing I was going to say that we haven't done, I'm wondering if my husband's ever coming back, that we haven't done yet is the...
Maybe you found some pizza.
Right. Okay. We haven't done like going all the way to the max number just to like.
Oh sure, test it. Yeah.
So we just haven't. I mean, I think you had said like in the backyard where she can't like get away.
Mm-hmm. So what I do is, one, it's optional. I always tell people it's optional.
Yeah.
I like to do it because in life, if that happens, you're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, I want to know that she'll come back if you have to do that.
It's on the leash too.
Okay.
We don't do this off the leash, whether you're in the yard or not, because it's gonna make everybody's lives easier, and you still get the same result.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go out and you max it, and she's just being a dog. 30 minutes in, I don't do a thing with her. I don't want obedience in her mind at all.
Yeah.
I want her to think she's in her own world, and then max it out. 127, boom, boom, boom. See what she does, and if she beeline straight to you, good girl, and then I just ignore her for the rest of the time. Okay. If she doesn't and she freaks out and either shuts down or pulls away, you keep at 127, and you use that to make her return, because most people go down or want to go down because it sucks. I'm like, no. I was like, because if this happens in real life, you're not going to have the opportunity to go down. You're going to be at the same number. So you have to force the return on that number. And the only thing I do that with is with the recall.
Yeah.
Everything else I don't care about. Okay. Why, were you wanting to try that, or?
I was just thinking in terms of like work to do going forward, you know, and just things we can continue to kind of work on. I mean, I want to try that at some point, you know, in life, just because like I want her to know that if the worst thing possible happens, that she needs to come to us.
Exactly.
So that's just something I thought of that we hadn't done yet.
I think your recall, from what I've seen, is good enough that you can do that when you're ready for it. Okay. Because some of my clients, they practice the recall, but they don't practice as much because they don't have like the space to or whatever. So I'll see the dog and I can tell that they're still like in the learning process, and I tell them, you want to be at the point where they have a very good concept of it, because this way they're more likely to just return to you, and you're not going to have to force it with the 127.
Yeah.
You know.
And so with practicing it with the recall, we would give the come command, but then use the 127.
No. I don't do a come command.
Oh, okay.
It's completely out of the blue.
Perfect.
Because if she's like running after something or running away from something, she's not gonna hear. Because she's so like, I'm gonna make a video on this about. I think we talked about working her when she gets tangled up, like making her return.
Oh yeah.
Right. So this happened yesterday with the client, and the dog got tangled up, and the owner started throwing the leash out because the dog was running away. I'm like, no. I was like, you keep reeling it in, and I'm like, you make that dog return, and he did. But he started to panic, right? And so I was like, you have to force the return, even though everything was happening, because in life, that's when it's going to be the most applicable. But just working through all those things within a controlled context, so that we're not concerned about, is the dog going to think running away is an option? You know, so whether it's 127 maxed out and it's just out the blue. Oh, I'm sorry, that's what I was talking about. So in the moments, in the video, I'm going, reel in your leash, pull, 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 and he's throwing it out. So, and then afterwards, he says, I couldn't hear what you were saying. He's like, I was so panicked.
Oh my gosh.
So that's why I said that story, because for her, it's going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
You yell out, come, she's panicked. She's not going to process what you're saying.
Gotcha.
That's where 127 out the blue comes into play. And it's just the emotional aspect of, like, for you, it's going to suck. Yeah. For her, it's going to suck. But you've done it before. So if that should happen, realistically speaking, she's going to return.
Yeah.
Okay? Other questions? So thanks for practicing, okay? Definitely we want to come back to the down. Go whenever you struggle with anything, whenever you see Dinah having issues with something, because this happened with Corey last week, we went back to square one. He couldn't step away from her. So I said, there's no point in doing this with the long leash. Let's bring out the short leash. We started on the short leash. We did a few reps. And then we quickly built back to the long leash. Okay, so if you ever see her struggling with something, always go back to the beginning, go back to the basics. If she's struggling with the recall, whatever, and she's off the leash, I go back to the long leash, and then maybe I have it dragging, so it's not in my hand, but I have a little bit more leverage to make her return or stop her from at least having all these options. Okay, for the heel, if she's not at your side or whatever, you know, instead of going back to old habits of shortening the leash, it's going back to giving that slack, tapping and turning. But now at this point, it's really just going to be your number.
Yeah.
Okay, anything that you struggle with is almost always going to be a number, unless you're doing something to counteract the remote, like shortening the leash and pulling back. Because pulling back tells the dog to pull, remote is saying don't pull. Now you have conflicting messages. And the dog will almost always listen to the leash and not the remote.
Interesting.
Okay. You guys practice this stuff, I think so. You've been practicing off leash, but in the yard, right? And I think Corey said he's been practicing off leash, but at that
the
frisbee place, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's all fine. Trying to think if there's anything that. How is her play drive?
Like with other dogs and stuff?
Like ball or
frisbee, yeah. She loves it.
Is that her thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Her thing, for sure.
What I would try to do is incorporate frisbee and obedience sessions.
Okay.
So you have your reward, technically distraction, and you can practice like an off-leash heel. You're walking with her, you stop, okay, break, throw, right? So you're practicing your sits, your downs, your stays, your heel, your recall, all that stuff within a play session. Okay, so like let's say you're not actively using place or down or sit or stay in life, the fact that you're applying it in the training session with the frisbee is keeping it just applicable.
Yeah.
So she doesn't forget it, because that does happen, especially during the winter, is people get lazy because they either don't walk as much because it's too cold or whatever. Yeah. So if there's something that you can do either indoors or outdoors, that's fun, because then since she gets kind of drivey for the frisbee, then now she's gonna make a lot more mistakes, because now she's excited, like gimme, and now we can clear up those mistakes. And I'll do things like where I'll throw the frisbee, but I don't release her, and then I'll go break from like a down, and then she can chase the frisbee. You know, so I'm working on impulse control. Just because I throw the frisbee, if you're under command, does not mean you get to go for it. So if we do something like that, I'll have the leash on her, so I can step on it, so that when I throw it, if she tries to go for it, she's not going to actively be able to go. I'm limiting her. That makes it much easier to correct her back into position, and then I release to get the object.
Nice.
Okay?
Okay. There's a wedding party behind you, just pointing out, because it's kind of awesome.
Oh.
Because it's cold and outdoors.
Let's go ahead and we'll do a bit more of her long leash stuff. Okay? Whenever you're ready. Yep.
Which bit? I'm sorry.
Any part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what we were doing right now is we did heel, stay, down, sit, just kind of using them interchangeably. I was really pushing for seeing if she would follow you like she did last week with Corey and stuff, but she's actually been doing really well. Okay. The only issue she had was with the stalling, which trying to think if there's anything that really triggered her stopping on the long leash heel. So go ahead and I would definitely push faster speed to slowing down to see if she makes any mistakes there. Okay, go ahead. Is he on the 90 by chance?
No.
Okay. Because somebody had just messaged us saying that they were on the expressway to get their dog, and traffic was terrible.
Oh, okay.
Right? Good. So here, pivot. You could. What I do there is pivot inwards.
Oh, okay.
So like this, and she'd be back on your left. Okay. Good. Go into a super slow walk, but keep walking. A little slower. Tap. Yeah. that was on the first hit though, so that was good. Go ahead and pick up speed. Yep. Good turn. Did I talk to you about the random right turns before?
No.
Okay, so go ahead and come to a stop. So that was good. So like when you go really slow, that's when that's when she starts to stop, because she's thinking that's what you're gonna do. So that's why I had you do that, and that was really nice on that first hit. Boom, straight to the leg. They didn't even take 2 or 3. So that's what I'm looking for. So the next thing is for the long leash heel, because I'm trying to force separation, is I'll do a random turn like this. A soft right turn, not a pivot. Okay. So, because for her, with her peripheral range, when you turn like that, you go out of it.
No.
Okay. So when you do it randomly, and I do it off the right like this, because I'm trying to force space, so that it can remote her. To get force confusion, force panic, when she turns off, I keep going, I keep remoting to get her to stick to my leg. So it's technically an unfair move, just so you know. But I do it for the sake of proofing the off-leash heel.
Makes sense.
Okay, so we're gonna try that.
Okay.
Heel.
Heel. And I'll put the wrong leg.
Right. That was a good turn. Good pivot. Right, good. Try doing that turn on a fast walk. Right. Good. Yep, good. Good pivot. Good. Right, good, very good. Nice. Good turn. But she's on it though. Good pivot. Right, good turn. There you go, good. Going to come to a stop when you're ready. Good. Going to cue the down.
Down.
Leash. Almost. There she goes. Now step away.
What's that?
Step away. And I'm gonna have you come like towards me, okay? So you go kind of far out here.
It's like a little baby.
She looks very good. So here, just little tricks to prove things as much as possible.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you ever see her not do well with something, like for instance that slowing down and her coming to those stops, we want to fix that stuff. Because let's say you go to off leash and that was still a problem, and you're trying to tap her to get her to move into your leg, and she's not ever done it before, she's most likely going to deflect and run off. Okay, so I like to do all those things now. If she does try anything, she's not going to get far. She's on a leash. Okay. I'm trying to think here. Anything else? Okay. That's pretty much it. It's just practicing until you get the full off leash. Oh, so step towards her here. So if that happens, the way we correct it is by moving in. Because if you stay where you are, she might think recall. So if I move in, they're less likely to make that decision. But also when you move towards a dog, put confrontational pressure on them, that it'll more likely put them into there we go. So move in. Yep. Yep.
Nope. Dinah, come.
Reel in. Yep. Pull. Step. There she goes. Good. And now you're gonna just step away. Okay. Good distraction.
Yeah, that was really good.
And then you were still at 45, right?
Yeah.
So, love for dad is too much. That you go higher? Yes. Or reel her in a bit. Reel her in. But we reinforce that because it doesn't matter what it is that's going on. If she's under command, she has to hold it. Okay? Always being sure, because especially with couples, like, oh, but it's the mom, or it's dad, or it's the brother. I'm like, I understand that. But it becomes an option, and the dog doesn't think like, well, it's only acceptable because it's a man. They just think, well, I decided to do it, and I was allowed to. Okay? Here we go. So we were working on just a couple of things. One was initially when we started, Dinah's attention was like elsewhere, so we had to go to 85.
We went up to 90.
90.
And then back to 85 to get her, because she was healing behind me looking at something else. She wasn't ready to work. So it was 85, boom, 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 and she yelped like a couple times until she was like, oh right, I'm supposed to be right here.
Right.
And then after that she's been like, I mean it's been a little bit more, but she's been much more like, oh right, we're doing this.
Yeah. And then her number went down to 45.
Yeah.
Her only real mistake, other than like this one here, was when Jen was going slower, she would go into a stop because she thought she was stopping. So then the first time it took 5 hits, the second time it took 3 hits, and then every time since then it's been 1 hit. And she's running straight to the leg. Other than that, her stays were good, her downs were good, her sit was good, her recall was good, the side steps was good. There was a couple that you had to tap for, but for the most part she was on it.
Yeah.
So initially starting off with just that, getting her in line with that higher power, kind of set the tone for the rest of the class, which I was telling her about. Now for your walks, you want to set that tone at the beginning, and ideally it's like, oh, I set the tone 2 weeks ago and it's still resonating, and I've not had to like correct or do all these turns, and she's just spot on my hip. Okay.
Sounds a little like last week where I was saying that I felt like she was being kind of lazy.
Yeah.
You worked with her and like really like zapped her into behavior.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how this was, yeah. Because I was saying on our walk, like the ones from the other day, we had a couple different things that had produced anxiety, but I had to keep doing the turnarounds. But we were talking about the number, and I said it at like 32 on a walk. I think I went up to 40.
Sure.
But it just isn't high enough. Like a high enough number, and she's like, oh crap, I get it.
Yeah. So like you're overriding one anxiety with another anxiety.
Yeah.
It's technically how it works,
Yeah.
right?
Dad, you have no idea what torture it's been.
Because like with my pit, she hates fireworks. And with the e-collar, I can taper her down, but you can still see where she's just like, I do not want to be here, but I'm only doing this because I know remote's present. and I'd rather not be remote. You know, so realistically speaking, I'm gonna take what I'm gonna get because I know you're just under so much emotional stress. Or like in the wintertime when it's really cold, my pit will be like, when are we going home? When are we going home? Because she's so cold.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't expect you to be perfect because obviously the cold is overriding anything that I can do, and that would be unfair for me to try to force her to be as compliant like she would be on the summer days. So little things like that, as you learn about Dinah more, how she responds, and like when it's snowing, when it has snow, when there's loud noises, when it's raining, when there's thunderstorms, like all those are different contexts that she may not respond the same in each one. You know, so a lot of people will know in the wintertime in the snow clouds, their dogs are spasming, and their normal numbers during like the summertime or fall time isn't working. And I tell them, yeah, because they're so excited about the snow that they end up operating at a higher number in the wintertime. So they can spring, they're back to the lower.
She, the other day, this is relevant to her college this middle of the night, but she, normally if there's been thunder, she's afraid of a roll of thunder and then is fine again. She doesn't contextualize this as an event, it's going to keep happening. Sure. Our last dog totally did. But with the storms we had roll through this last week, at one point it was the middle of the night and there was pretty continuous thunder and she was kind of whining from her crate. Whereas the last two times before that, because we kept having thunder this week, she didn't. So it's just kind of interesting, just even in that example, she's responding differently to the same thing.
Correct.
Depending.
And like my kid, for like I would say, till she was about 6, she didn't care about thunder, like storm range like that. But once she became when she turned 6, I'm not sure, I can't remember if anything happened, but all of a sudden she started getting storm anxiety. So things can also change. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. Our last dog, at about the same age, was suddenly freaked out when I hiccuped. She didn't care about my hiccuping for years before that.
Sure.
And suddenly it sounded like something to her, and she just like would come running if I was hiccuping.
Sure.
So funny.
Yeah, things change, you know. So I'm always like observing the dog, and I just learn as we go along and stuff. But like my chihuahua didn't hate fireworks until one day 2 years ago, somebody took a firework and let it right here. And ever since then, it's fireworks.
Yeah. So that was like with them this summer. Like, well, it's her first year with them, but she was so interested in watching this one firework trailing up into the sky, and it was one of the big ones. Gotcha. She's like, oh, what's that? Boom! And she just, her little glands shot off and everything. She was just full on. Yes. Yeah. She, a couple times she has had that happen. So, yeah, it's a fun result.
So I keep all that stuff in mind.
Yeah.
In terms of practicing, you've got everything. Now it's just practicing until you feel like you're comfortable with your off leash. You know, utilize that yard, utilize the area that you've been, and just remember, if you go somewhere new, like a forest preserve that you've never been to before, I like to take a step back, go back to the long leash, rehearse there, make sure that everything transfers well, because it's not immediate. Okay, now if you practice at 20 different types of open spaces or whatever, with all sorts of things going on, then you'll start to say like, oh yeah, right off the bat, her obedience will land as soon as you arrive.
Yeah, which will be, you know, I mentioned before, but we have a family place out in Wyoming that's pretty remote, where we'll kind of hike up to and stuff.
Sure.
And so it, you know, we would give her time to obviously acclimate to being there, but that's kind of the hope that she would, you know, be able to be off leash, because like, it's
usually an initial like just starting to warm it up, and then